I want to talk about this just a little bit so we kind of understand what the Course is asking us to look at. It says, this is from chapter 20, the Vision of Holiness, section number 1. And it's paragraphs 1 through 3. And that's all we're going to read right now, and then we'll stop. It says, this is Palm Sunday. So Palm Sunday would have been last Sunday. It says, the celebration of victory and the acceptance of the truth. Let us not spend this holy week, excuse me, I need a Kleenex there, brooding on the crucifixion of God's Son, but happily in the celebration of his release. For Easter is the sign of peace, not pain. A slain Christ has no meaning, but a risen Christ becomes the symbol of the Son of God's forgiveness on himself, the sign he looks upon himself as healed and whole. Now you might say, well, what in the world does that mean? Let us not spend time brooding on the crucifixion. And you know, there's a lot of the concept of Holy Week can be one where we're thinking about, oh, Jesus ends up being crucified. And there's a lot of attention in traditional Christian calendars to pay attention to Maundy, Thursday, which is a very maudlin time. That's very depressing. And Friday, the crucifixion, and then the resurrection to finally get to that. And I want to make this more contemporary for us. When it just says, let's just stop brooding. What are you brooding about? What are you holding on to? What are the irritations in your mind? You see, that's where we are crucifying ourselves. That's what this is saying. Brooding on the crucifixion, even personally for ourselves. What are we brooding on? What do we sit there and feel sorry for ourselves about, feel limited in ourselves about? What is it that's we're going through? It says, let's not spend time there. Let's move to what we can move to. And we've been given lots of lessons throughout this series. I could see peace instead of this. God is the strength in which I trust. We've been given a lot of these little lessons to redirect our attention. So let's do that. That's what it's saying for us to do. It says a slain Christ, focusing on our crucifying thoughts and how we've been crucified in the past and how it's just going to project into the future, is meaningless. But when we can arise in glory, when we can feel the strength of God or the peace in this moment, we become a symbol of how we can feel empowered. That's what God's Son's forgiveness on himself is about. Now, let's go to the second paragraph. This week begins with palms and ends with lilies, the white and holy sign of the Son of God's innocence. Let no dark sign of crucifixion intervene between the journey and its purpose. Again, what we're asked to do, between the acceptance of the truth and its expression. This week we celebrate life, not death, and we honor the perfect purity of the Son of God and not his sins. Offer your brother the gift of lilies, not the crown of thorns, the gift of love and not the gift of fear. You stand beside your brother, thorns in one hand and lilies in the other, uncertain which to give. Join with me now and throw away the thorns and offer only lilies to replace them. It's time for us to forgive. And that comes back to what we've been talking about in these lessons. Why? Because we want to know our power. When we condemn, and here's what the Course says. Forgiveness, again, I think is kind of sorely mistaken. We look for areas where we think somebody has harmed us or wronged us so that we can forgive them. And what the Course is asking us to do is anytime we condemn someone, a condemning thought, not just a wrong. This is not about, oh, they cut in front of me. Oh, I'll forgive them. I mean, that's fine to do. But what this is talking about is the condemning thoughts we hold in our mind. And we all have them. Who are we condemning? What is the condemnation? That's what imprisons us. And that's what we need to be released from. And that's why it says, this week we have a chance. You hold in your hands for your brother and for yourself the gift of lilies, you know, these beautiful lilies here, or the gift of thorns. That's the condemning thought. This is the releasing thought. What will you do? For yourself the same way. Will you sit there and condemn yourself for all the mistakes you've made, or will you release yourself? That's what this week is about. Now, let's look at that third paragraph. Now, here it says what this symbolizes. A week is short, and yet this holy week is the symbol of the whole journey the Son of God has undertaken. Do you understand that? That's your entire journey. This is you. This is a real life experience of you. That's what this Holy Week signifies. Here's how we start. We start with the sign of victory, the promise of resurrection already given him, already given us. What do we know about the Course? What does it always say to us? We are God's holy child in whom he's well pleased. You've never separated from your source. Love created you like it is, and that's never changed. Do we know that? See, we're given that promise. We're given our salvation. But what happens is the next line. Let him not wander into the temptation of crucifixion and delay him there. We've done that. We've wandered into the thought of crucifixion, where the judgments that come into our minds, we're like driving by an accident. And you see an accident, and everybody's rubbernecking, looking at the accident. And so we kind of look, and what should be our action is to bless it and move on so that we become part of the solution instead of part of the problem. But we like to look. What's going on over there? Ooh, what's happening over there? And we get drug into it. Not only our problems, but we get drug into other people's problems. Oh, what's going on with you? Oh, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. And we get drug into it. And this isn't just something that's happened to us currently. We can all see it. We all kind of chuckle about it because we've all done it. This is our history. This is our ancient learning. And this is what we still drag with us from the Sunnis and the Shiites, to the Middle East area now. I mean, when Jeffrey was studying world history as a sophomore in high school, I was so fascinated because his book was talking about the Middle East area and what all happened in those areas and how angry they were. And they still are. They still are. And we drag this ancient history into our now. And we keep dragging it along with us because we think that it gives us something. And possibly because we have no idea how to solve it. But what we're reminded is the entire journey of the Son of God is the remembrance of victory in the face of crucifixion. We may wander into the valley of the shadow of death, but we do not have to stay there. Why? Because we've already been given victory. We have the victory. We need to remember that. That's why these lessons, this entire time, have been so important for us to replace the lie with the truth. Victory over seeming death. That's what the symbology is. The third point there is, what do we do? How do we get there? Well, this. Help him, help us, help your brother to go in peace beyond the temptation of crucifixion, beyond the thought of death, with the light of his own innocence, lighting the way to his redemption and his release. Lighten his awareness with truth. How? By forgiving through the love of God within you now. By not holding on to grievances, but focusing on the love that is the truth about you, wanting that more than the grievances, because the grievances cost you the awareness, the vision of truth. If you really understood that your grievances cost you vision, cost you the clarity of knowing what to do in every circumstance and situation, would you really value your grievances that much? Would those little problems really seem that important? Would your desire to be right and righteous really be that important to you? Or would another way make more sense? Would letting love lead the way, even though you do not know what that means, perhaps, would that not make more sense to you? And that's what this is about. We have to be the bringers of that. We can't say, well, why am I always the one that has to forgive? Have you ever said that? I'm always the one that has to forgive. Well, yeah, you get the benefit, don't you? You have the awareness. What do you think if Jesus said, why do I have to be crucified? Jeez, But what did he say? He said, I made the last useless journey the sonship will ever have to take. I made an extreme example so that you do not have to. What greater love could there be than to say, I'm going to show you that I was beaten, abandoned, as the Course would say, and he says, finally killed, but I did not share that perception. And there are people, I'm sure, that you have known who've gone through some incredible struggles, and you would go, gosh, if I were in that place, I would be so devastated. And they don't have that devastation about them. There are people like that, and we've all experienced them. There are people probably sitting in this room tonight who've gone through a lot of difficult times and have survived and have done well. So we're getting there. If you are the one that has to be bigger, say in a circumstance or situation, ready to hold the light for another, well, aren't you lucky? because you are the one that is blessed in that experience. If others are not, if they're not ready, then you can still hold the light for them because that awakens you. And that's what this is about. Then it says on that next line where it says, hold him not back. So this is what we're asked to do. Don't sit there in your judgment. Hold him not back with thorns and nails when his redemption is so near. Same thing for yourself. Hold yourself not back with thorns and nails, with anger and judgment of the past when your redemption is so near. Hold no one else back when their redemption is so near, and yours too, because in theirs you find yours. But let the whiteness of your shining gift of lilies, this willingness to forgive, to let love lead the way, speed him on his way to resurrection. For Easter is not the celebration of the cost of sin, but of its end. You know, it is now time to stop just saying it's too hard. No, you have to be committed to this. And so we do these lessons. And when we forget, we try again. And when we forget, we try again. And when we forget yet again, we try again. And we don't get mad at ourselves because we're so poor at remembering. We just try again.